like in terms of the news today and how depressing it all is and sad, like we need some joy.
Yeah.
100%. That's what this podcast is all about, Mitchell,
we need
isn't
some
it?
uplifting
That's what it's about.
stories.
Mitchell's all about these stories
this
of
is
light,
a
huh?
Perfect transition. Do you have some success stories? Some like, wow, this
I got
worked?
some success
Let's
stories.
Let's go.
I just came for the coffee.
Cheers, boys.
Yeah.
Today's guest is super special. I don't want to waste much time bringing her on. Give me a little test, Grandma.
Yes.
That sounds perfect. She's got the best mic out of all of us. Welcome back, everybody. It is Questions Over Coffee. I'm your host, Mitch Goldstein. And we just want to thank you for listening, watching, subscribing, checking it out. Thank you for those that have been riding with us. We appreciate it. So if you haven't yet, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button, share it with a friend, spread the message. We're trying to do our best here to reach as many people as possible. Now, if it looks like Christian looks a little bit different today, it's because it's not Christian.
Not Christian.
Not Christian.
No, couldn't even like stand like in his presence. I know I'm a very inferior replacement for today.
No way.
But I'm just honored to sit on this side of the table for once.
No way. We have our third guest, Dave Heiliger, back today, first repeat, and helping me co-host this session today.
Thanks for the invite. I mean,
No,
to be
man, thank you.
invited back to this table, I don't take that lightly.
Well, you're going to get more of them in the future, so we're just getting started.
Hey, shout out to Christian though.
Yeah, shout out to Christian. Christian's wife, Maddie, got a last-minute job. She's nursing, got a 12-hour shift, and she had to go in. He was unable to find a babysitter, so we're going to make it happen.
Holding down the dad role right there.
Yeah, he's playing dad.
My daughter, I don't know where she is tonight, so
You know what?
Christian's outshining me once again. Thanks, Christian.
Yeah. Christian, we miss you. We'll see you on the next one. We have a really special guest today, so I don't want to take a ton of time, but we do like to just kind of like intro when we get here and chop something up. And you've done two things recently that are really big, if you ask me.
Oh my goodness.
So one, when you were here as a guest, you guys were getting ready to launch your book.
Yeah.
Your revised edition of Gracism. It's now out.
It's out.
Yeah.
So Gracism, The Art of Inclusion, written by Dr. David Anderson, my boss, and a guy that I've worked with to build bridges across all sorts of divides of color, class, culture, all around the world. He wrote this book, and over the past year, I've been helping him revise and expand it, and it's been launched. It's out there, so make sure you go get a copy.
Where can they get it?
So Amazon is the best way to do it. And actually, this past week, our audiobook version just released too. So if you're an audiobook person, head over to Audible, exclusively on Audible. Ooh. You can go download Gracism, The Art of Inclusion. And it helps just normal folks like you and me figure out how to address some of the issues of racism in our world.
Important.
Yep. And it's so accessible that anybody can have it as a starting point.
I am an Audible guy.
Yep.
And I didn't know that, so I'm going to get it.
Awesome.
That's my way to consume for sure. And also, you guys are on the Bible app, the U version.
Yeah. So since Gracism is a concept that kind of grows out of Scripture, the Bible app is so U version Bible app. They have devotionals. So we have a 5-day devotional for Gracism. If you want just a little bit of like an intro. So Gracism with a G, just in case you were wondering what I was saying. Gracism, that starts with a G.
I'm on day 3.
Oh, right on. Okay, cool.
And second thing, we'll touch on it really quick. Half Ironman, bro.
Let's go.
Let's go,
My man. Yeah, so it was on my bucket list for a long time. I've been doing triathlons for like the last 10, 15 years. But always like the short ones where you got to be like, somebody says, wow, you're doing a triathlon? You're like, yeah, but they're like baby triathlons. Like that's what I've been doing. So I always wanted to like man up and actually like do a real triathlon.
Well, you manned up because I signed up for one of those baby triathlons and I didn't do it.
Yeah, well, seriously, they were awesome to get me into it. And now that I've done a half Ironman, I know like what the real people do, because then there's the full Ironman, and that's just ridiculous. I couldn't imagine going through. So it took me about 6.5 hours.
Yeah,
couldn't imagine at that point me feeling like death, starting over and doing it all over again.
If I had to put my money on it, you're going to do it one day.
Maybe when I'm 55.
Well, You know, we got something to look
You
forward
heard
to.
it here first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was technically called the Eagle Man race.
Yeah, so each Ironman race that happens around the country has its like specific local name, and so that's the Eagle Man right here in Maryland in Cambridge.
Yeah. So my boy Dave's got a new nickname. He is the Eagle Man, and I might be the only one that calls you that, but it's special to me because, dude, it was incredibly inspiring to watch your whole journey. You posted when you were swimming.
Yeah.
You posted on the bike. You posted your runs, and it encouraged me to stay healthy, to stay cognizant of just trying to continue to move my physical body. So thanks for that.
Hey, it was a blast doing it, and by the end of it, by the end of all that training, I was just ready to be done. Like all that went into it. So
are you done? Are you being lazy? Are you kicking your feet up?
you know, I couldn't sit around for too long. So back at it.
Well, speaking of getting back at it, our guest today is a really special guest that I'm incredibly just grateful that she made the time for us. She's a journalist, and she created the platform called More to Her Story, which is amplifying the voices, stories, and ideas of young women. She has support from so many different organizations, one of them being the United Nations Refugee Agency. And she was able to spend 2 years documenting the stories of displaced young women from 10 different countries, including Syria, Afghanistan, Somalia, Palestine, and South Sudan, just to name a few. But her platform was created for young women and girls to share their thoughts, challenges, and ideas on how to make a better future. She's traveled the world, and she's made time for us tonight. She's here in the studio, so we're not going to waste any more time. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sarah Little. Welcome, Sarah. Sarah, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Well, it is Questions Over Coffee. So before I forget, cheers, ladies and gentlemen.
Cheers.
So we are drinking oat milk lattes.
All of us.
Oh, wow.
Are we all on the oat milk train?
No, I fumbled the bag last time Dave was here, and I did
I
not
think I
heard
take
something about
coconut
that.
milk. I got coconut water. So today I made sure to make up for it.
Coconut water.
Wow,
That's
Mitchell,
for
you
you.
came through.
That's
so
for you.
last time I was here,
Yeah, and Dave never shut up about it. He told everyone.
Really?
Yeah,
You heard about it?
I haven't stopped talking about
You
it.
heard about it. There's your stirs.
I heard about
Oh,
it.
stirs. Okay, I thought you wanted to have me drink a whole glass of coconut milk. No,
You could do that too.
Well, so I asked for coconut milk, and Mitchell brought coconut water, not knowing that there was a difference.
Hey, lesson learned.
But I want to be very clear and upfront. I only asked for coconut milk to sound better than I actually am, like a little bougie. And so,
I mean, you're about as good as they come in my book, Dave.
My
so
man.
we got you coconut milk. So Sarah, you and I have known each other for some time, but
Yeah.
you and Dave have known each other for quite some time. How did you guys first meet?
Oh, I guess I'm
Yes.
yeah, so I interned with Dave at Bridgeway
Okay.
when I was 18. Yeah.
so almost
My
10 years
senior
ago.
year
Isn't
of
that
high school.
crazy?
Yeah, it's been almost 10 years. It's crazy. And then we became like really good friends.
Definitely.
What did
Yeah.
you do there when you first started?
I
interning?
was doing a documentary film. So I was like editing, and I like we went to Mexico, and I produced like a film for them after the trip.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I led a service trip to Mexico to work with some missionary friends that we have down there.
Youth group?
And with the
Yeah.
youth ministry. And Sarah came along to document the whole thing and do a video project to tell the story about what they were doing there in Squatter Village, right there outside of Cancun. And so she documented what they were doing and some of the work that our team was doing and just give some really cool perspective. So that was our first introduction. And I got to hear about the way she had been already working to change the world. And then it launched from there, and she didn't stop.
Yeah, because you
Rest is
didn't.
history.
That wasn't like your first time. Did you grow up in different countries when you were a kid, or like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a Passover before I could walk. Travel was always just a part of my life, and my mom is a photojournalist and my dad is a social entrepreneur, so he's created like a lot of organizations around the world, like helping young people find jobs, and basically my whole childhood was just spent kind of following them around as they went on their adventures.
That's unique.
Yeah, it was unique. It
Yeah.
it wasn't always easy, because I think there was like a lot of like pulling out of school, putting back in school, homeschool, like a lot of just moving elements, but it definitely shaped me into who I am today. So I'm grateful.
So my sister and I talk about like core memories when we're young, like
Yeah.
things that stick out. Like,
Yeah.
is that my first memory, or like it might not be my first, but I know it's when I was young. Do you have any of those where you're like, this
Yeah.
is a unique lifestyle?
Yeah, I think I was 8 years old. I was on a trip with my parents in Zambia, and because they used to lead like groups of people to Zambia, and we were in a village, and we were in a hut, and I remember sitting on the floor of this hut with my parents and this 15-year-old girl, Zambian girl, and she had been raped, and she was dying of AIDS. And the guy who had raped her like had just dipped, and she had no one, and it was a jolting moment. I was 8 and she was 15, and I remember just kind of being like, shit, like this happens. She's only a few years older than me,
Is that where you think this all started, of like fighting for women's rights and trying to be a voice in the dark?
I think there's probably a lot of different elements, like a lot of different starting points. That was, I think part of it probably does trace back to just exposure to a lot of those things from an early age that a lot of kids weren't being exposed to, probably. Just how young people, and particularly young women, live around the world. But then we moved to the Middle East when I was 11, full time. And so that was...
What a time to move.
Yeah.
Like completely out of your element into a completely different culture.
Yeah.
And having to adapt. I mean, being in middle school is hard enough. But then to be completely in a place that's new and a different culture.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also like kind of like sprung on me, on all of us.
Wow.
It was like, my dad was like, yeah, I got offered, like, we're going to go to the middle, like Qatar. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. Like, what is that a country? Like,
yeah, I think most of us that are listening are like, I couldn't put that on a map if you asked.
Yeah.
I think I could spell it Qatar. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I couldn't pinpoint it though. No.
Yeah, I couldn't either.
So from 11 until how old?
Yeah, so we moved when I was 11, and I did my middle school years there. And just for context, because Qatar is a small country, and like it recently made international headlines for hosting the World Cup. But most people don't really know, where Qatar is, what it's about. Like, it's a country in the Gulf next to Saudi Arabia and the UAE, and it's a very oil-rich country, and it's consistently ranked below the regional average in terms of gender equality. And they still have a pervasive male guardianship system that exists there, where women are essentially treated like children. They have to have permission from their male guardian to study abroad, study in Qatar on scholarship, marry who they want, travel outside of the country. This exists today. And I actually had the senior women's rights researcher. I also host a podcast. So I had the senior women's rights researcher at Human Rights Watch on my podcast last week. And we were talking a lot about Qatar and its male guardianship system, because she wrote, like, I would say she's one of like the leading researchers on Qatar and the Gulf states generally. And she wrote like a 94-page report just about Qatar and its abusive male guardianship system.
Wow.
So yeah, she's like an expert. And she was just saying, like, she was talking to a lot of young women about their lives in Qatar and just how like humiliating these rules are, how restrictive they are. She got a lot of backlash for criticizing the World Cup, like them hosting the World Cup. Yeah. So anyway,
so I know we'll get back around to it, but you mentioned you have a podcast. It's called
More to Her Story.
More to Her
podcast,
Story. And we'll talk about it more later, but as people are like logging it in their brain and like listening. So
where can people find it?
Anywhere you get your podcast.
Anywhere you get that, probably
Spotify,
wherever
Apple
you're
Music,
listening to this, you can probably listen to that.
Exactly.
Do you do the uploading and all that yourself?
Yeah, I do. And it's like, it's getting to a point where like I need capacity.
Yeah. You don't use Buzzsprout, do you?
I use Simplecast.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you a Buzzsprout boy?
I'm Buzzsprout. Yeah.
Nice.
It's my first one. I'm just trying.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if there's other ones.
I think
it's
one of the good ones. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's probably really hard to, if somebody were to say like, Sarah, where are you from?
Yeah.
Where are you from, Sarah? You're like from everywhere?
So
Planet
just to
Earth?
give, sorry, I just like got off on Qatar because I wanted to give people context. But after Qatar, I came back when I was like 15, almost 15. And then my mom and I, we like essentially backpacked around Europe for like half a year. for my last year of middle school. And then I was like in 3 high schools in 4 years, one of them in Costa Rica. And then I moved to Chicago when I was 18, 2 years in Chicago, left Chicago, moved to New York, London, and Jordan, and then back to New York, and then London, and then anyway. So then I was the past year I've been in the Middle East. So anyway, so just it's to answer your question, it's hard to like say where. So I always self-identify as from New York because I feel like that's where I feel most at home.
Okay.
And if I'm gonna choose a place, like I want to choose somewhere where I feel.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's also internationally known.
But what then does make a place feel like home?
Oh, what a question.
I think the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think also it's this sense of like belonging. So the Middle East feels like home. It's like obviously a huge region, but the culture feels very much like home.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm glad you asked that because on one of your Instagram posts, you sat with a group of women in Palestine.
Yeah.
Talking about how they defined home.
Yeah.
What kind of answers did you get from them? Similar, or what is their perspective?
Yeah. It's tricky. That's a tricky, Palestinians are still living under intense occupation, military occupation. And so their idea of home has been very much like, I don't even want to speak for, like, it's hard to even speak about like for Palestinians because I have so many Palestinian friends. And I spent 2 months in Palestine earlier this year covering the Israeli elections, the most recent ones, which, have been crazy.
Did it go the way you were hoping?
No. Okay. No. But now, there's hope because there's, masses taking to the streets in protest of the current Netanyahu government, which is anti-democratic and all that. But that's we can get it. It's a completely other topic.
Well, you've traveled the world and it's deep, and we have a ton of questions ready to go into that. But one thing we like to do on here is just rapid fire questions.
Sure.
Where like you're not prepped for them, and we can get either one word responses or you can take it as far as you want. I'll go first, and then Dave, you want to go back and forth on these?
You bet. I'm
All right,
ready.
First one, Sarah Little.
Yeah.
What's your favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Okay.
If you could go back to one place you've traveled to in the past, where would you like to go back to?
Italy.
Italy, nice.
Anywhere specific?
Rome. I really liked Rome.
Okay. Is there life on other planets?
Yes.
What's 7 times 6?
Why would you do that?
I did it.
All right.
Wait. I'm not going to embarrass myself. 20. No.
Higher.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes.
Higher.
Wait.
Higher.
Because 7 times. 5.
Yep. No,
humiliating.
you're not here for math.
We could skip.
Yep. Go ahead.
Skip it. I can't do it.
All right, so it's 42.
Thank you.
It's the hardest multiplication
It gets
problem.
all the guests because we'll throw in like a multiplication, and literally every guest, like Brandon Copeland, the one that we just put up, was like, "Gosh, dang!" He's like, "Why'd you do this to me?"
Yeah.
Don't feel bad. The name of one young girl that's made an incredible impact on your life.
Oh. Medina.
Okay.
What's one emotion you felt when you learned that a giant mural of you has been painted on the side of a building in Amman, Jordan? An emotion.
You would ask that question. Disbelief.
Okay. What's your favorite season?
Fall in New York.
Nice.
And what's your favorite animal?
Penguin.
Okay.
There it is.
Okay, there it is.
Rapid fire.
Off the hot seat. You crushed it.
Wow.
You crushed it. All right. So we've gone into it, and we've talked a little bit about like how you fight for women's equality around the world and how there may have been some core memories getting started. But did you know when, like, was there a line in the sand where you drew where you're like, that's my life's work? And what was it?
Yeah. So I mentioned that the Middle East has played a big part of my life, and I moved back to the region when I was 20 to Jordan, and I was there conducting research in Zatari refugee camp, which is the largest refugee camp in the Middle East, and has housed the most number of Syrians fleeing the war. And I was there meeting with young women and girls, wanting to understand, what is your life like, essentially. Like, at that time, I wasn't a journalist. I was just a young woman, like, curious about the lives of other young women. But I also was there long enough to create a life for myself in Amman, Jordan's capital. And I had a lot of Jordanian friends, girlfriends, and actually, side note, like the hotel, so my hotel receptionist when I was there, she was like my age, and I was the only person staying at the hotel at the time. It was like a new hotel.
No way.
Yeah, it was like just brand new. So she had nothing to do all day. I had nothing, like we became friends. And so we started going out every week for dinner, and she's a huge feminist. She would just tell me stories of, am I allowed to swear in here?
You'd be you.
Okay. So she would tell me stories of the shit that went on, like, to women and girls in her country. And it like really blew my mind. And I think through our conversations, and not only, but like that was a huge, like, to your question, like, was there a defining moment? Like, those conversations were defining for me. And I would just go back to my hotel room and just cry like every night and just be like, what the f-? Like, this is insane. Like, and we weren't just talking about gender equity in Jordan, but in the larger Middle East and ultimately the world, because these issues don't exist in a vacuum, obviously.
Yeah.
So you were going from refugee camps where you're working with somebody who anybody would look at that and say, wow, that's probably a woman who deals with very difficult life circumstances, and it might be even harder because she's a woman, somebody on the outside. And then you go to your hotel, and it's not just like, oh, the people in the refugee camp deal with that, but my hotel manager, like, she's the one that deals with it too. And so it's like probably interesting to see both of those laid side by side in your experience there too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just women, like, and a story that really shook me to my core that my friend told me was her. I mean, we were both like 19, 20 at the time, and she told me her friend, who's this 20-year-old girl, and she bought a cell phone behind her brother's back and her father's back, and she wasn't allowed to. And her 18-year-old brother, like, found her cell phone one night and was so angry that she had done that, because God knows what, like, she was doing on that cell phone, like, probably talking to boys, like, God forbid she, like, I don't know, like,
text the guy,
or like goes out and, like, the worst possible thing, have sex with the guy, like, tarnish the family honor, like, ruin everyone's life. And anyway, he was so angry that he, like, took a gun, went into her room while she was asleep, and killed her.
Goodness gracious.
And went,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, and went directly after to the mosque to pray. And I don't say that to bring Islam into it. It has nothing to do with religion. It's just a matter of how deeply, deep these core beliefs and values are to many men. And it's heavy when you think about it. And that story shook me.
So when you get this passion and you go back to your hotel room and you're bawling your eyes out, this is a hard fight to fight, but you just decide, like, I got to do it. Like, somebody's got to answer it. It's got to be me. Like, that takes a lot of courage.
Yeah. I mean, I never thought of it as it's just me, alone in this. 'Cause I felt like I was really on the shoulders of, like, so many women who, like, have paved the way, and, like, especially having spent so much time in the Middle East, like, where Arab women have, like, kind of, I don't know, molded me into the feminist that I am, because they're so, like, strong and, like, they have to fight so much shit. Like, they're the ones who kind of have, like, instilled this, like, passion and, like, anger almost.
I wonder how feminism looks different in the Middle East than it does here in the States, because most of us will never kind of get out of this area to see the kind of nuance and perspectives that you have. And so it's really cool that your specific calling and passion for this grew out of a culture that is so distinct from what we experience here. And I bet that has a lot of influence on the way you fight for what you believe in, and the way you write, and the way you amplify voices, and the way that you make sure that it doesn't just come through your lens, but you recognize this is so much bigger than just you and your experience, because you're hearing so many different perspectives feeding into what you know, but not just what you know, but how you process that information, which seems really cool. Yeah.
And I definitely recognized, my like identity, in that I'm not Arab, and there's a lot of baggage that comes with, Western white feminism of like coming into a part of the world that they don't necessarily see the same way that other people see. And it's like, and like having to navigate that space with fragility and nuance.
Not just coming in and just saying, this is how I'm going to do this. Exactly. And you people who need my help will take it however I can give it.
And they don't need my help, but like it's a matter of like,
it's a joining. What I see in that is like you're joining them in the process.
Exactly.
So how does that alter your approach?
Yeah, I think that honestly, after like coming back from Jordan the first time when I was younger, and like kind of having that fire and like that anger and that realization that this is what I kind of want to make my life about, I started seeing things in a different way. Like I started seeing things here in a different way. Like I started walking down the street and being like, oh my God, like what was that? Or what was that? Or I never noticed that before. Like, oh my God, has that always happened? Like I would see things and I'd be like, oh my God, like this shit is everywhere.
Yeah.
Made
you like hyper aware.
Super aware. Yeah. Hyper aware.
Yeah. Man. And then, so like when you decide this, do you have to like have a conversation with yourself? Like, look, this isn't the easy route, but I'm just going to have to do it. Or was it like no second guessing at all?
Yeah, there wasn't really, it didn't feel like a choice. It felt like a God thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, God doesn't make mistakes.
Well, and it overlaps with your passion for journalism too, and writing. And so it's not just a cause that you're adopting for yourself or you're seeing a calling in it, but you actually have this amazing skill that you've developed to be able to leverage that to help tell the stories that you're hearing.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so tell a little bit about your journey into journalism specifically, because you've always been a writer, you've always had that passion, but then it's turning into journalism that brings light to things that most of us will never get a chance to see it firsthand. Yeah.
Well, the beauty of journalism is that it's just about telling people's stories, and so I like, to your point, it does fit really, really nicely into that. But I studied journalism in undergrad, and I think that like it's always kind of been a part of me, like my mom being a photojournalist and like just always wanting to tell other people's stories and just having a natural inclination for curiosity. So I don't know, it just kind of happened naturally. And then I think after starting More to Her Story, it was like a very just easy kind of transition into that. I was like, this is what I want to do.
Well, tell a little bit about more to Her Story. Okay, so like more to her story is what exactly?
Yeah. So it's been a lot of things. There's been like many iterations of it. It started as a book, which is not like, it's not like published, but it started as that. And then it evolved into, like during COVID, I started a platform, like a digital platform, for girls to like share their stories and express themselves and share their creative works. That evolved into a podcast. That evolved into major news outlets coming to me wanting to create short form video content of girls and broadcast them to much larger audiences.
Because it seems like you, through the development of this, you have access to something that major media outlets don't have access to. And what that is real people experiencing extreme harm that are going through the process of dealing with it. Not just somebody, like, you're not just saying you're the representative, you're saying they're their own representatives. And so you give them that platform. And so to get to them, they come through you because you've built that up to elevate their voices.
That's what it's always been about. is just amplifying and elevating those voices.
Is there like a risk or fear associated with some of these girls sharing their stories? Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. And how do you navigate that?
Yeah, especially in Afghanistan where like the Taliban are actively in power and like targeting women. It's most of the girls that like, I mean, I was talking to a girl on my way here, literally like in the Uber, like she's texting me like, and so girls will send me their videos, and a lot of times they will ask me to blur out their faces. And if they're in a context that is like actively danger zone, then I'll just blur them out, or like change their voices or, but a lot of them also just want to send like their written stories. And in that case, like I would just change their name. But it's definitely something that, and I also don't like have a team or anything, so it's just me like I'm like
piecing it together.
Yeah, they're like trusting me with their stories, like to post them and like get them out to the world. I'm like, bro, like you're like.
Has that been surprising to you that like they are sharing such, I guess, very real and vulnerable information with you, like with this platform? What gives you credibility in their mind that they're like, okay, if I'm going to share it with anybody, it's going to be this platform. It's going to be Sarah. Yeah,
I think that it's a combination of things. I think that one is like I've built a lot of trust with girls over like several years. It's not just been like a, parachute journalist kind of thing. Like, can I get like texting or like, can I tell your story? I don't even know you, but yeah, I mean, it takes time. Like there was a girl, for example, in Jordan when I was there. So I've been there for the past like 4 months, and I put out a call on Instagram, basically asking if a girl had ever experienced like being locked at home by her dad or her brother or her like male guardian, and if she was currently locked at home. And so this girl, like I had a lot of responses from girls, and one girl responded and was like, yeah, I'm locked at home right now, I can't leave, but like I'm gonna sneak out and like meet you somewhere and so I can tell you my story. And so I like went out, like I met her at like a hotel, and like I didn't encourage this, like she really like she was doing it. She was doing it anyway.
Coming or not. I'll be at this hotel, Sarah.
And yeah, she like met me and she told me her story, and it was insane. And like she basically is this really bright young woman, speaks perfect English, like very smart, but her dad would not let her go to university because it's like mixed with men, even though her brother could go to university and mix with women. And she's currently working like 2 jobs remotely from home, but her parents like don't know that, and probably wouldn't allow it if they did. And so, yeah, she's basically just like, I don't know what to do. And she's making so much money. She's making more money than anyone in her family, but she doesn't know what to do with all this money because she doesn't know what to, like, she can't fucking leave her house. So,
real.
Yeah.
She's just hoarding it, just building a pile of it.
Yeah.
Now,
and also to finish that, like obviously her parents want her to get married. And so she's planning to marry this guy that she doesn't like really, and he's not a really great guy, and she's planning to marry him in order so that they can leave the country and she can divorce him in order to have her freedom.
And that's just real life.
That's just real life.
That's just real life.
It's real life. And she invited me over to her family's house for iftar. In Islam, it's like breaking the fast for Eid. Ramadan, sorry. And so she invited me over for iftar, and so I went to have a meal with her family. Her dad like refused to meet me because like I wasn't covered, and so I sat with her mom and her aunt and her siblings, and it was funny because they don't speak any English. And so we were like talking in English right in front of them, and she's like, "Yeah, I go out all the time, and like they don't have any idea."
Oh my goodness! And you're like, if they only knew what you're saying right now. Are you trying to hold your facial expressions?
I'm just like, bro, like.
Wow.
But like honestly, to that point, what was your original question? Sorry, I got off.
Just if like it's like a danger for them to share their stories. That was the original question where we got started, I think, was like, you receiving these stories, do you worry about those
sorry,
girls?
and I was talking about building trust with girls. And like with her, like we met up several times, and like I would go over to her house and I would meet her family, and like that built that trust. And
and that doesn't sound like journalism. That sounds like somebody who cares.
Well,
right?
I think it's both.
In the sense of
like
you do want to tell these stories, but you're not just in it to tell their stories.
She's not just like a source. Like it's like an actual.
Oh, that's interesting. They're not just a source.
Yeah, no, they're my friends.
Is that is that a conscious reframing that you have to keep doing? Like this person is not a source, like that, or do you more come to it from the other side of like, man, I really like this person, engage with them, and like I care for them. Oh yeah, I should probably be sharing. What's the story in this?
She wanted me to tell her story.
Okay.
So I mean, yes, I was on one hand thinking of her as a source, but the other hand, I was like, I care about you and like, you know, this is your reality. Like you can't escape this reality, and you're gonna go marry this kind of jackass guy in order to get a divorce, in order just to gain your most basic freedoms. Like that's fucked. Like that's your reality. Yeah. Like,
and that I think about that through my lens. That was never any part of my story, right? Like that's something that I, as a, you know, throughout my life here in the States as a guy and as a white guy, I never had to deal with those kind of barriers to get what I wanted out of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy what some people have to go through. Where like you said, like how we kind of asked the question earlier, like where it's like, well, for the people in the United States who really don't travel outside, like it's a little different for them. Same with us on that perspective of like, yeah, I'm never going to have to marry into something for my safety or to get out of something dangerous. So I appreciate you shedding light on it because we're here to learn, and I appreciate you just sharing these stories because they're unique. Yeah. They're really unique.
But even like, sorry to that point, and then we can change the subject, but like to the point about the US, like wasn't there a case earlier, was it earlier this year? No.
What do you got?
Last year. I know. Of the 10-year-old girl after Roe v. Wade was overturned, like the 10-year-old girl who had to cross state borders lines in order to get an abortion after she was raped.
Wow.
Right.
10-year-old. I mean,
I didn't even hear that.
Yeah. And it's like, these girls are risking their safety and risking like, you know, it's crazy. Yeah.
Now we asked like with the girls sharing their stories, like, is it a danger to them? And sometimes you have to blur out their faces, change their voices. Are you ever worried about yourself, whether the dad of this daughter or the brother is going to come for you?
Yeah. That was something as it got deeper, like that story particularly, like as it got deeper, I was like more aware of it, but no, I wasn't ever concerned. In other cases, I think I've always been quite like aware of those things. Like I wouldn't go somewhere if I thought it was a danger, but no, by and large, I'm not like, no, I mean, there was like, I Googled my name the other day. Just randomly. No. I'd never done that before, and I Googled it, and the first
I've never done that before either, Mitchell. I've never Googled my own name.
I don't want to talk about when
no,
you
right.
my name.
Right,
There might be a mugshot or something.
Right, or how many records are, you know.
I don't know. I didn't do it. I just
as long as they're from over, 10 years ago, we're good, right? Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
it's been a while, but
yeah, there's more to that story.
Yeah. I want to hear more of that.
I know, right?
Next time when you come back.
When you Googled your own name.
I Googled my name, and the first thing that came up was Sarah Little, Taliban spokesperson.
Wow.
And I was
interesting.
I was like, hey, that's just not true.
It's out of context.
Right? It's not fully out of context because I've interviewed not Taliban members, but like people who have are very outspoken on that issue, and high profile journalists and
probably
all
some people that have lived under the Taliban rule.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been outspoken on Twitter about it. But the fact that was like the first thing came up, and Taliban spokesperson,
the spokesperson for it. You're authorized.
Yeah, that's the out of context part for me. Is like
sounds more like I'm in support of it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
You can't believe everything you see on the internet, folks.
No.
So you mentioned earlier, like when I was like, do you feel called to this? Like it's your job. You said some women kind of paved the way. Who are they and why? What do they do?
I think girls who are living, currently living under, literally just the most oppressive regimes ever. Like those girls are who inspire me the most. And even the girl, I won't name her, but the girl that I just told you about her story, she's still such like a person. She's persevering, and she's like the biggest feminist ever. And she's like, women's rights, like, you know, and it's like, if I was in that situation and I didn't have a choice, like I was in that situation, like, I don't know if I would be like trying to like fight for women's rights. Like, I don't know. I think I'd just be exhausted and like trying to live and survive, you know? I don't know if I'd be like trying to be on the front lines, like advocating, you know?
Yeah. So what?
So those people inspire me. I'm like, damn.
When you've hung out with them, what do they talk about as being the thing that inspires them? Can you remember anything like that they point to that keeps them thinking beyond their circumstances?
I think at the end of the day, we're all we have. Do you know what I mean? Like, she probably sees other women speaking out against sexism, against oppressive regimes and laws and the patriarchy. Oh, like, she probably sees that, and she's like, that gives her energy, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And I maybe like, I'd love to be one of those women that like give her energy,
definitely,
so that she has the energy to keep going, you know?
I think a lot of times we gain our identity from our biggest pain points or our biggest pride points.
Yeah.
And sometimes those are connected, you know, more often than not. And so looking at those giant pain points that are constantly holding girls like her down, that if she's going to survive in that, she needs to put so much of her identity into overcoming that.
Yeah.
That I could see that carrying, you know, somebody through some of those darkest moments.
Yeah.
So what are some like character traits that I guess inspire, like grit? Is that persistence? Like, what do you look at that as?
I had a beanie for like 3 years that said grit on it, and I would wear it everywhere. In
What happened to it?
every Instagram picture.
You just retired it, or did you lose it?
I lost it on a train somewhere in Europe. Yeah, I was so sad. Anyway, what, like, just words that inspire me?
Or, no, just like, what do you look at that as? Is that grit? Is that
courage?
Yeah. How would you define those actions?
Yeah, I mean, resilience is the word that comes to mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're just kicked down over and over again.
And finding an inner strength
To get back up.
It just takes a hell of a lot of resilience.
Well, you spent some time in some really unique places like refugee camps. What was that experience like? And you kind of prefaced this, like, when you go through that, how do you come back to normal American life after that?
Yeah, I mean, the last time I was in a refugee camp was several years ago. And it's always a sobering experience, but it's also, you know, I remember being in a refugee camp on the outskirts of Athens in Greece, and just spending the day with Afghan women and girls, and just going to their homes and breaking bread with them and hearing their stories. And like, those days really are, at the end of the day, like, we shared a lot of laughter and like joy, and like, that wasn't like a sad, heavy kind of day.
Yeah.
I love hearing people's stories, and they love sharing it. So I'm like, that to me is uplifting. Yeah, I can't think of an experience that I have had in a refugee camp where it's been like, oh my gosh, like, I just feel super heavy after this day. It's all been like, the people themselves are incredible, like anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
Wow.
And I feel like people, especially people in those situations, like, are like perhaps even more resilient, you know? So that comes out in your conversations and everything.
So I heard a description of resilience being like a tree that can stand up, you know,
Yeah.
when wind blows it. Like, it can be pushed, but then it has this inner strength to be able to be flexible to come back up to its original position, or like that strong position. But that comes because the wind blows, right? It builds that strength over time. And it's because of the difficult times and the things that they've endured that actually build it up to be able to endure even greater things. So you are spending time with these women who have endured such extreme circumstances. So you're meeting some of the strongest women out there.
Yeah,
And
literally,
then you get to enjoy their their culture, their table, their conversation, their jokes, their music, their art, and all of that comes out. And I bet it's an amazing thing to see the strength that comes through that, because it's been tested and tried and true. And then you just hang out with all these amazing, strong women.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, iron sharpens iron, and just being in their presence kind of gives you that like insight on what we all have in us if we choose to bring it out.
Yeah, and to even that point, like the news. Speaking as putting my journalist hat on, but like speaking like in terms of the news today and how depressing it all is and sad, like we need some joy.
Yeah,
100%. That's what this podcast is all about, Mitchell,
we
isn't
need
it?
some uplifting
That's what
stories.
it's about.
Mitchell's all about these stories
this
of
is
light,
a
huh?
Perfect transition. Do you have some success stories? Some like, wow, this
I got
worked?
some success stories.
Let's go.
Yeah, so there's this group of all under 25 years old girls in Zaatari camp, the camp that I mentioned in Jordan. And actually okay, so hold on, I need to back up. So this group, they started the first all-girls soccer team in the camp.
Awesome.
Yeah. And which is like a super taboo. There's been like no like girls soccer team. Because physical activity is often seen as like strenuous and like not like ladylike and like whatever, bringing attention to yourself, whatever. So they've done this and they've broken the boundary, and they're killing it. And the captain of the team is like the girl, her name is Zad, and she's I've known her since she was 16.
Wow.
Like I've known her for like the past like 7 years, and she was one of the first girls a part of More to Her Story.
Oh,
and now she's like trailblazing and like starting.
And so this is a team
Still
that
got more to her
yes,
story.
yes.
then gets to be an example to all the younger girls in that same
She's
camp.
killing it.
Awesome.
Oh my God, I'm so proud of her. Yeah.
That's really cool.
That's awesome.
How could people find them? You know, like
Literally,
is
so
is it possible for people who are listening to like
absolutely
find out about this group?
They started their own Instagram page and they've amassed more than 13,000 followers in the past month.
What is it?
The Dreamers.
The Dreamers. We're going to plug it in. It's on your screen right here.
Dreamers.
Right here. It's right here.
Right. In the show notes, do we do show notes? It'll be at least be
I'm going to literally put the text up on the screen.
Oh, perfect.
It's a major plug
And
right
in the
now.
description.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. These girls are killing it.
And that's one thing that I think what sports can do is then reinforce all of the qualities that are sometimes diminished within those those unequal gender systems. So you think about competition and physical activity, and you think about that kind of the leadership strengths that sports instill in girls. Now they have a way to encourage that through this. That's really, really cool.
As they say in Arabic, Masha'Allah. God has willed this.
Say it again.
Isn't that cool? Masha'Allah.
Love it.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and learn
I say it
I'm
way
gonna
too much.
butcher it if I say it right now. Mashallah.
Yeah.
All right.
There it is. Check you out, Mitchell.
You know, so might put it on a t-shirt. If you could have it go perfectly according to plan, where would you go and what causes would you fix immediately? Like, is there a certain country that needs it the most, or is there a place where your heartstrings are pulled for?
Yeah, I mean, so many places. I mean, every place, every corner of the globe, no place is spared from the patriarchy. I will say, so I want to say two things. One is there are places right now like Afghanistan, like Iran, that are experiencing gender apartheid. And I actually was with this group of Iranian women activists and lawyers in Norway a couple of weeks ago. And this group of Iranian women like are pushing to get gender apartheid to become a crime under international law.
What is that for like somebody like me that doesn't understand apartheid?
So gender apartheid. So apartheid is any policy or system of segregation or discrimination on grounds of race or gender.
Okay.
And so gender apartheid is less talked about, obviously, but it exists, and it is not currently a crime under international law. And so this incredible group of Iranian women are trying to push that, and they've been getting incredible like momentum. And I think they're going to do it. I know they're
so
going to do
if it can be determined to be against the law on the international stage, then countries like Iran would be held accountable
Yeah,
in a different
exactly.
way.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
they might be sanctioned or
Yeah.
not allowed to participate in some
Yeah.
forums because they haven't addressed these issues.
Yeah.
And so
And-
that's one of those changes that if it happens at that like top level, the ripple effects of that can transform a whole system.
Exactly. And in Afghanistan, like where teenage girls can't go to school right now. I mean, the Taliban has said they're not like the 1990s Taliban. They are. Nothing's different. I mean, girls are still locked at home, locked, like erased from public spaces.
They can never go to school, or just once they
Teenage
become
girls.
teenagers.
Teenage girls.
So when they're 6 through 12, they do, and then they're done.
Grades. I think it is grades starting at 6 and then up through university. So
gone.
university students
Yeah.
also can't. Women. So yeah, it's messed up. And so yeah, criminalizing that under international law would be huge.
Who would do that? Like the United Nations? Like who would be in charge of like?
I don't want to like speak about the specifics
Okay.
because I don't actually know.
Okay.
All I know is this group of Iranian women are killing it.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I want to say is that right here in the United States, I'll just talk about more the West generally. Like I spent before this past year, I was in the UK for a year. And sexism is super pervasive. And we were talking about this the other night, but just how consent is not really taught in schools. And that's something that I would love to change. In this country, in my country.
You have a friend that just like published a book on this, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So give us.
She's killing it.
Nice. Give us the easy. Here's where you start.
Yeah. I mean,
Description of
consent. Yeah, consent is at its core about permission. It's an agreement between two people, and but there's a lot of there's a lot of gray area in that agreement, and experts have said that between half and 80% of all interpersonal communication is nonverbal.
Sure.
So if we take that fact into account, what does consent actually look like in practice? Like,
Okay.
And when you talk about consent, it's sexual interaction between two people.
Yeah, we're talking about sexual
right?
interactions right now.
And
Yeah.
so this would be in a dating circumstance or some kind of relationship that's whether it's new or has been married for 30 years. Like it's the permission to move things forward, right? And so it's got to be difficult because real talk. Okay, let's just kind of move into where it hits home.
Yeah.
Does a guy then have to, or does a girl then have to ask for permission anytime they want to advance the degree of interaction, of physical interaction? You're like, may I ... May I ...
And is that rare for a guy to do that? For a guy to just be like, "Can I kiss you?" Like,
Right.
is that not normal?
And then would they have to do it every time in order for consent to
that's
be,
a good question.
To be received? And what it seems like what you're saying is, since 80% of our interaction communication is nonverbal, then it's not just about asking and answering.
No, and it's actually like, I think what I would tell guys, because I've had guys ask me this, and it seems like a pretty basic question, but it's also like, it seems like a pretty basic answer as well. It's like let's move things slowly. Let's not just run, and if I'm, as the woman, like if I'm turning away or if I'm like this or like, no, like I'm not really feeling that, or like don't touch me there, or like no, like I'm good, but yeah, he proceeds and just like, or even if he doesn't proceed, even if he's just like, oh come on, like come on,
Yeah.
it's like no means no, but also this means no and this means no.
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of hand gestures, but yeah,
Yeah. So
Reading body
even
language.
Body
a
language.
recoil, right? Yeah.
a recoil. And that's something that's not taught. And I think that men are not really socialized to accept rejection. And so when and girls are really not socialized to say no. But even the verbal no is, I think, where a lot of guys see it like end in their head, Like if she's not verbally saying no,
Yeah.
then like
Then the
I'm
door's
good.
still open.
Yeah. It's a green light.
Yeah.
But it's not.
But it's
But
not.
and that's something that when I think about my job as a dad, right? I've got a
Yeah.
little girl and she's growing up, and I want to figure out like, how do I raise her up to really see the value and the power of her no?
Yeah.
So how would you?
I remember we talked about this one time a long time ago, and you said, like, if we're like having a wrestling match or something,
Mm-hmm.
like, or I don't know, like anything, and she says no, stop. Then you're like, you're
Then I
done.
gotta stop.
You gotta, like, because I think that like parents oftentimes find it hard to just stop.
Sure, I'm like,
Right.
come on, let's go. Come on, let's get into
Yeah.
a little bit more, right? But just to be able to say, okay, right, okay, and teach her that means something.
Yeah.
And so if she gets respect from me, then she can demand it from other people too.
I thought that was powerful when you said that.
Now, is there a way to navigate that? Like, let's say, because some people will just be very apprehensive from the jump and would be like, no, like it's time to get in the pool, and they won't even dip their toe. But it's like, if you wanted to encourage movement in that direction of like, she needs to learn how to swim, how would you then navigate that? I want to teach her the value in vocalizing no and respecting that, but I also want her to continue to develop. And this is a non-sexual talk now, but like, how would you navigate that water of like respecting her vocalizing no, but also like, okay, don't be so apprehensive about everything in life.
Right. So, right. How do you? For me, we were thinking about this. So again, my dad hat on a little bit here, but she tried swimming, swim team 2 years ago, and the intensity of the competition of swim team, not interested. She loved swimming. She loved the social aspect of it. But once you had 100 people around the pool all shouting at her, go, 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 she didn't want any part of it. So then me and Julie, my wife, had to have the conversation, like, how much do we push her past the challenge of what's comfortable and not comfortable for her own, like, or her resilience building or her tenacity building, and how much do we just say, you know what, you don't have to be on swim team, that's a difficult thing. So when in other parts of life, right, when do we let her no be her own no? And we don't have an answer for that, right? So what we did was we didn't think swim team was that important of a hill to die on.
If you have a conviction about it, okay, now maybe we dig in a little bit. But if you guys are like, I mean, what does it matter if she swims or not? Like,
sure,
let her
but
take the lead.
I think one thing that we really try very intentionally to do is, for Reese, my daughter, is to make sure that her thoughts are valued, her perspective is valued, that we're asking her questions, that like she receives a lot of that worth from us and from our home. And so that'll be normal, right? For her voice to be valued in our home. So wherever she goes, I hope that her voice is valued.
That's good.
But when a person is, to go back to the idea of consent, when a relationship is developing, or even like interest is developing, what tips can you give for guys? And here we are, right? We're talking about gender issues, and it's two guys, and you're the voice for the women's
for all
side.
women. I'm
So
just kidding.
please don't I don't want this to put a huge weight on you, but just as we're talking about it, as you're thinking about, there are probably a lot of people who are listening who are listening to voices and influencers that are fueling a lot of the male, just go out and be strong and get them, and don't take no for an answer, but take what you want, and more of an aggressive. Sure, right?
But the people that are defending those types of actions.
And then it would seem weak for a guy to then say, oh, I need permission to advance this. No, you advance it, and if she wants to walk away, she'll walk away. Where is that? Where can we help people who are wrestling with that thought? Maybe have a little bit of a different perspective.
Yeah. I'd say it comes down to empathy. And I think that there's a big empathy gap between men and women, and that men often lack empathy. Sorry.
Sure.
And
We'll receive it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, you're talking to two empathetic guys.
Maybe
yeah.
on
But
on
empathy,
that,
I don't even
yeah.
mean like empathizing with someone going through trauma or tragedy or whatever. I mean like empathy as in like being able to read a situation, intuit, deeply intuit a situation, like if non-verbally, I think every woman, and I will speak for all women, I think every woman at some point in her life to varying degrees has experienced a very real moment of discomfort with a man. And that should say something, and so when women say, when a man's first reaction is not all men, that says a lot.
Okay.
Like, if a guy said that to me, that would say a lot to me about how he sees, about how his lack of self-awareness and self-analysis and ability to like critically view the world that he lives in.
Very narrow-minded, like just focused on his world, as opposed to saying, okay, I understand there are experiences out there that have affected you from men that have done these bad things, as opposed to being like, well, I don't do that. So
yeah, but it's like, I think that when people think, oh, I wouldn't do that, it's like they're picturing like a guy in a back like dark alley, like forcefully like raping a woman, and they would be like, oh, I wouldn't do that, so I'm not a bad guy. I don't fall into that category. But the reality is that like that is not the norm. Like the normal like rapist, and I'm using that word very casually because that is like it is like a norm. Like all rape is like non-consensual sex.
So if
And
it's
like-
overly pressured,
Yeah.
if it's done because the person is fearing a loss,
Exactly.
fearing
safety, coerced into it, pressured into it.
in like
Yeah.
not sober, right? And so they can't make all their decisions. If it's like, at what point is that line between their yes is a yes and their yes is really just intoxication, lack of an ability,
and you can't
no.
consent to something if you're
So
drunk.
So you're saying for the men out there that one thing that is needed is an investment in our own ability to read a situation when words are not leading. So if the words aren't there, that you can still read the situation. And I just want to say to all the guys that are listening, that is a very like strong leadership ability.
Yep.
And if you as a guy out there are thinking, oh, empathy's the answer, oh my goodness, that sounds so soft. No, there's a strong leadership intuition to be able to read a situation. I mean, you think about all your favorite poker players. I bet they can read a situation at the top of the game, right? If you think about the best salesmen, right? And they can really sell, they can read a situation. And so exercising that ability to read the situation is important. And then once you read it, to not take advantage of it for your own good, right? Because you can read it and be really good at reading a situation and then manipulate it so you get what you want. But read it and then respect. You read it, then you respect it.
Yeah, and it does. It does.
That'll preach, buddy. Yeah, but would you say that's true? Like that is one thing we could, if somebody's listening, they could be like, okay, to begin to exercise that muscle of reading a situation when words aren't necessarily prominent.
Absolutely. That's
And for me, the question I want to ask is like advice to a guy, instead of saying use your intuition and get better at reading the room. Is there a vocal communication that they could just ask? And like, if so, what's the way?
Whoa, that sounds simple. Like you're like, okay, but couldn't they just ask though?
But also, and it's important to take in everything at play. Like if there's the opportunity is not there to like verbally communicate during that, and usually it is, but like if it's not, or if the woman is clearly like already uncomfortable, if there's like a power dynamic or like whatever, there's like a lot of factors that could be at play where even asking like, is this okay? Like, and she's like, sure.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
what is, that
Yeah.
that wasn't consent,
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like important to
Okay.
like what I, you know what I mean
So
by
that's
empathy.
where that
yeah.
insight, that like reading the room would come in. Like, I did
Yeah.
vocalize it, but I mean, she said sure, but that's not an eager sure. That's
Yeah.
I'm scared and kind of forced into this.
Right. And I would say, just to make it super simple, is that I usually say, if it's not an enthusiastic yes, it's a no.
Okay. There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it's not an enthusiastic yes, chances are it's a no. Okay.
All right, guys, you better step up your game.
Yeah.
Yep. You can't just get a half-hearted yes and think that's the green light.
What's coming next for you? Where are you headed? What are you doing? What's down the pipeline?
I've been in the Middle East for the past year, reporting, and I'm heading back to New York in September. I'm actually heading to Rwanda next week for the largest global, largest gender equality conference in the world. So a lot of heads of UN agencies will be there. A lot of cool people will be there. And it happens once every 3 years. This year it's on the African continent, which is exciting. First time ever.
Cool.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Are you just a fly on the wall, or do you have anything engagements-wise?
I think I'm covering it. So yeah. I'm participating, but I'm also covering it.
And
So.
what does that look like for you? You're just soaking everything in. You're writing about it. You're podcasting about it. You're putting it on all your platforms.
All of the above. Interviewing people also and also, there might be breaking news there. Who knows?
Yeah.
The UN came out back in March and said that it'll take at least 300 years to achieve gender equity at the current rate of progress.
300 years.
Yikes.
So you're speeding it up. You're speeding it up.
We'll see.
Yeah. No, you're doing the good work and you're fighting the good fight. And we're honored to have you on here. So
Thank
thanks,
you.
Thanks for giving
Thanks
us
for
your
having
time.
me.
Yeah. Anything you want to make sure we touch on? Anything you want to make sure we touch on?
I think about when I think about Sarah and the work that she does, I think about the woman who started the National Association for Colored Women and was also part of the start of the NAACP. She had this phrase that she would use as this core motto of her work, and it was lifting as we climb. And I think there's like a very essential message in that, and I see you living out your life out that way, where you are advancing your own work. You're going to school. You're developing your writing. Your journalist. Your journalism career is something you're very passionate about advancing, but none of that is done for your own gain. And I think as you are climbing, as you are pushing, I see you making sure you're lifting others as you climb. And I think that's an example. And I think that that's not something that should just be relegated to you. And I think as other people hear this and as we hear this and we say, wow, let's make sure she doesn't have to lift alone, is something that inspires me about you.
Wow.
And I want to make sure that you hear that from me.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave. Where can people support you? How can people get involved?
So Instagram is my main platform.
Yep.
I say that because it sounds so funny, but Ceriddle is my Instagram.
We'll throw it in.
Ceriddle.
More to Her Story official is the More to Her Story's Instagram, and I post everything there. And then also moretoherstory.org.
Okay, cool.
And also More to Her Story, the podcast, which is like really cool. And like, honestly, I have on some of like the coolest people ever. I am not just saying that because it's my podcast. I had on the first woman president of Ireland recently. Like that was like, that
Heavy
blew
hitters.
my mind, bro. I was
Heavy
like,
hitters.
Yeah.
Big time.
How do you get these?
Yeah.
through partnerships, through organizations, like people who have been following More to Her Story and like believe in the mission.
They make the connection.
Yeah.
And it's just like kind of set up, laid up for you, where you're not like cold messaging.
Well, I know definitely some people I've cold messaged.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it's always worked out.
Good for you.
Like,
Good for you.
Tenacity, getting after it.
like,
Yeah.
to quote Oprah, you get in life what you have the courage to ask for.
Okay.
Awesome.
Cool. We'll touch on it because I sent you some of the questions and I'm like, anything else you want to make sure we cover? You're like, music, bro. We got to talk about music. So,
Music.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So do you have any bars you want to bring on here?
So,
Oh, wait, no, I
okay.
was
So
not trying to do that.
when people research you and follow you on Instagram, every now and then they'll get a glimpse of your passion for music.
Yeah.
Other than the Taliban spokesperson, this is the
Right.
second
This
thing
is-
that comes up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So you write, you perform.
no to the latter, yes to the former. I don't perform.
You perform on your platform.
Yeah.
I perform
Every
on Instagram stories.
Yeah, that's a performance.
Did you know Mitchell?
Yeah, I know. That's why I wanted to
has
talk
some
about
rap
it.
too?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
I want to hear you rap right now.
Listen, I'm not prepared either with any
Okay.
any bars to drop.
We're gonna maybe you could put some links to where they could catch
Yeah.
both of
Let's
your.
collab.
Yeah. Oh my
Let's
goodness!
let's go on a track
I'm in.
together.
And you know what? We'll have Bex do the music video. So
Bex is already doing my music video. The next one.
let's go. It's boys getting work. Shout out to the boys in the back. Noam, Bex, we appreciate you guys running behind the scenes as well. I'd be down. I'd seriously be down for that.
Yeah,
a million
yeah.
%. A million. Anything you want to make sure we cover? Anything you want to plug? Any of that?
Follow More to Her Story official on Instagram and go to moretoherstory.org if you want to donate to the cause.
Cool. You good?
Dynamite.
Dynamite. Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you for
Keep
having
fighting
me.
that good fight. If there's anything we can do to support you in that journey, just know we're here.
Thank you guys.
Cool.
Right on.
All right. To everybody checking us out on YouTube, thanks for sticking with us. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, please do hit it. And if you're checking out on the audio only version, we appreciate you listening. This is the latest episode with Sarah Little and Dave Heiliger. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.